Your homework is to memorize this and write it 15 times.
Welcome to the coolest, hippest half hour of fun on TV. This is Brain Stew with Jennifer Pulley.
This week on Brain Stew, we're taking a field trip. Where to? I'm not telling. Stick around to find out. I will tell you this, though. We've got a neat experiment. We go rafting, plus find out how you can fill your brain with tons of information from the library. Don't touch that remote. Brain Stew is next.
Hey, welcome to the show. My name is Jennifer Pulley, and I'm your host, your educator, your mentor, but I'm not your mom. You, exercise your brain and try and guess which city we're in today. Here's a few hints. Number one, I used a map to get here. What direction? Help! Where are we? Anyway, number two. My car left Norfolk, Virginia, and I traveled approximately 2 hours in a northwest direction to get to this city. Hint number three, I'm overlooking a river named after a famous king. His name was James. Number four, Quattro. The governor of Virginia lives and works here. We'll chat with him later, if we can work him into our busy schedule. So, have any of you brainiacs figured it out yet? Anyone? 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 Anyone?
Hey.
Are you still thinking? Okay, 3 more hints. Here we go. The skyline is breathtaking. It was the first city ever to have an electric trolley car. Ding, ding. And finally, this is your last clue, so think. This city was burned to the ground as the Civil War came to an end. Well, if you haven't figured it out already, the spectacular and historical city we're discovering is our capital city, Richmond, Virginia. We're here at Hollywood Cemetery. No, not the Hollywood where movies are made, but this is the oldest active cemetery in the city of Richmond. Here's a fabulous fact. Did you know that over 150 years ago, the first person was buried here in Hollywood Cemetery? This is an old historic cemetery where 2 past presidents, like John Tyler, he was president of the United States from 1841 until 1845. John Tyler was a true Virginian. He was born in Charles City County, and he died in the city of Richmond in 1862. Another past U.S. president is James Monroe. He was president from 1775 till 1778. Hey, let's check it out and see what it says about President Monroe. It says here, right here, that James Monroe was born in Westmoreland County, which is here in Virginia, but it says he died in the city of New York. But he asked for his remains to be moved here to Hollywood Cemetery in Richmond, Virginia. Why? Because he loved Virginia so much. Cool. And many famous generals from the Civil War, including Jefferson Davis. He was president of the Confederate States of America from 1861 until 1865. That's 4 years. He served as president of the Southern states. We'll be talking about Jefferson Davis a little bit later on and how important he was to Richmond's history. They were all buried here. Hey, I have a friend, and she can give us some more information on the Civil War. And more importantly, she can tell us how Richmond came to be the capital city that it is today. Hey, I'm with my buddy, Clooney Brown Powell. You're the director of public programs here at the Valentine Museum. And I've got a question for you.
All right.
Has Richmond always been a city?
Actually, no. Richmond started off as a Powhatan settlement or village. The Powhatan Indians lived here from the York River down to North Carolina, from Richmond east to the Chesapeake Bay, and they took up all of this area.
Wow. And so it was the Indians first, and then what, and then
after Jamestown was settled, Christopher Newport was getting a little bored hanging out of Jamestown, and he hopped on a boat with 27 people, including Captain John Smith. Got as far as Richmond and couldn't go anywhere because of the falls, all the boulders and the rocks, so they kind of, came up and said, well, this is a neat place, let's hang out here for a while.
So Richmond was the capital in 1781. Are there any buildings here today in Richmond that are still standing?
Well, of course, there's St. John's Church.
Hey, you remember Patrick Henry? Give me liberty or give me death. Well, this is where he said it. 1741, this church was built. It's St. John's Church. And Patrick Henry was right in there when he made his famous speech. Come check it out, it's so cool.
Also down the hill from them, what is now the Poe Museum, the old stone house.
This is it. This is the oldest standing house in the city of Richmond. It was built around 1737. That's over 260 years old. Wow! A man by the name of Edgar Allan Poe lived and worked in this house.
There's also the Masonic Hall.
This is Masonic Hall, another really old building. This building's about 210 years old, and it's still standing.
I know there weren't any cars back then, so how did people get around?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, in 1888, Richmond became the first city in the United States to have the electric streetcar trolley system. And that helped establish the suburbs. It ran east to west. We do now have totally, self-propelled trolleys running through the city to mimic the trolleys that we had before. The company that built the trolleys became Virginia Power, which is now our electric company.
You're kidding me. It's the same company.
Same company.
Now, you know that I teach the 4th grade, okay? How different were the schools, around the time that we're talking about?
Tremendously different. Only certain people got to go to school, young boys who happened to have a lot of money. If you didn't have any money, you didn't get any education at all. Girls did not go to school. The young girls got their education from their mother, and not the same education, not as much math or history or rhetoric, and more sewing, domestic kind of things.
Now, I've heard you've got some interesting artifacts for me to look at. You can't bring them out here.
No, museums are interesting places. We get to collect all kinds of really cool stuff, but in order to keep it, we have to take care of it. And that means it doesn't get a whole lot of light. It doesn't get a whole lot of air with other kinds of particles and dirt and stuff in it. And we have to use special gloves. You'll see that I'll wear gloves when I'm inside so that my oils don't get on the artifacts and they stay good so people can look at them.
Hey, I'm upstairs at the Valentine Museum with Clooney wearing these nifty gloves. Clooney, what you got, girl?
Okay, I got here, this is one of the earliest maps of the Richmond area. Now here you see, this is the Chesapeake Bay area, and this they call the Virginian Sea, not the Atlantic. Up this way, if you go up the river here,
there's Jamestown.
There's Jamestown, exactly. Yeah. So you know that this is the James River right here.
Okay.
And you keep going up and we'll find Powhatan. Now that's where Chief Powhatan, father of Pocahontas, established, his headquarters right there. Now Richmond would be right down the river from it, right over here.
Okay, from pictures to real live artifacts that we can touch.
Exactly.
What do we got?
Well, this one here, I'll see if you can try to figure it out. You see it comes apart. This is a shape of a cigar, cigar mold.
Ah, his tobacco,
yes,
it's all connected.
Exactly, very important.
Right,
and this is, one of the things we do when we have people come in is we use objects to see if you can figure it out. Learn for yourself. Now this one, of course, is a little more obvious.
Yes.
This is a model of the first electric streetcar. This one was made in 1888 by a man who worked for the carriage-drawn trolley system and then went on to work for the electric system.
All right, we're off. We got to run, but I just want to thank you so much for having us here to the Valentine Museum.
You're welcome.
And I know you don't want me to take off with your gloves.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
Sure, thank you. It's great to have Brain Stew here. Thanks.
Well, we're still in the city of Richmond, and now we're at the Executive Mansion. This is where Governor George Allen and his family live. It's pretty cool. This building was built in 1813. That's calculations, how many years ago? It's a lot of years if you know your math. Besides the governor living here right now, there's been some other famous people that have lived here. According to this plaque, James Monroe and John Tyler lived here. Hey, wait a minute, didn't we see those guys at Hollywood Cemetery? This also says that this is the oldest executive mansion still in use today in the country. Hey, doesn't look that bad for being that old. There's a gate here. I don't know if I can get in. That's all right. We got a meeting with the governor. Hi, I'm Jennifer Pulley with Brain Stew, and we're here to see the governor.
Yes, we've been expecting you. Come on in.
We've got connections. Well, I'm here with the governor. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine, Jennifer.
Great.
And it's good to have you here at the governor's mansion.
I'm so excited to be here. Brain Stew is really glad that we could work you into our busy schedule.
Well, glad to be in it. I reckon.
Yeah. Well, I'm a school teacher, and I teach school. You're a governor.
Right. What grade do you teach?
4th grade.
4th grade. Good.
Yeah.
I have a daughter going into 4th grade.
Really? Oh, she'd love Brain Stew. She'd love it. What do you do as a, I mean, what's a governor? And what does a governor do?
Well, the governor is the executive branch of government, so to speak. There's the judicial branch, which are the courts. There's the legislative branch, which are representatives from all over Virginia, and they make laws. And as governor, I actually propose laws and get a legislator to carry that bill for us. I also veto bills. If there are bills that I think would be bad laws, I veto them, or I'll amend them to make them, in my view, better. And so you try to set priorities. As a governor, you're the leader of all the people of Virginia. And my priorities in government, and I think the top 2 responsibilities of a state government are in education and law enforcement.
What would somebody have to do if I wanted to be a governor, or if somebody watching wants to be a governor? What do you do? What are some of the steps you take to become a governor?
Well, first and foremost, the most important thing is get a good education. Well, it's absolutely true. I majored in history. It's very important. The most important thing is reading and writing.
Yep.
And I think you learn a lot from reading and learning, obviously, from history. But it's absolutely essential that you learn about the past history, learn about current events, and putting those all together as an individual, you can make decisions as to what's the proper course or what's the proper decision for someone to make when faced with a challenge. A lot of kids say, gosh, I want to be governor. And I say, well, first make sure that you do your studies, listen to your parents, listen to your teachers. Without those basics of reading and writing and speaking the English language well, knowing the fundamental aspects of science and mathematics, those things matter as governor. All those things are absolutely essential, and knowing those and being competent in that so that you can go on, if you so desire, into higher education, and no matter what you do.
Well, Governor, thank you so much for working us into your schedule.
It is my pleasure.
I appreciate it.
And your students are very lucky to have a teacher like you.
Thanks. Did you hear that?
They'll probably flunk a grade just to get you again.
Well.
But don't.
That's right, that's right. You heard it right from him. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Jennifer.
I'm here with my friend Robin Reed. He's the executive director of the Museum of the Confederacy.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good. Looks like a White House to me.
Well, you know, that's what some people call it. That is the official residence of Jefferson Davis when he was president of the Confederate States of America.
Now, we went to Jefferson Davis'
over in
grave.
Hollywood Cemetery.
Exactly. Now, tell me a little bit about this guy, Jefferson Davis, and how he was important to Richmond.
Well, Jefferson Davis was a very important American in general. He had been a war hero during the Mexican War. He had served as Secretary of War. He also was a member of the House of Representatives and also served as a member of the United States Senate. And when it came time to choose someone to lead this new nation, the Confederate States of America, he seemed to be the man for the job.
Okay, and he lived here?
And he lived here, moved here in 1861, and will live here with his family throughout the war until 1865.
I was wondering, who fought in the Civil War?
Well, that's a very good question, actually, because the thing that we forget about the Civil War is that it was the American Civil War, and that everybody who fought in it was actually an American. They disagreed on a lot of issues, and one of the big issues they disagreed on was that Abraham Lincoln was elected the 16th President of the United States. And the people in the South thought that that man may change completely the way that they lived here in the South. And they didn't like that, and they wanted to try to find a way to fight against that. Jefferson Davis had told them that if you didn't like the way a government was treating you, get out and start their own new government. And that's exactly what the people in the South did.
And that's how they became the Confederate States of America.
Exactly right. They started a new nation, the Confederate States of America.
Who did that include?
Well, that included 13 states in the South. Some that would be familiar to you would be Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, as far west as Texas, and even some states that were kind of on the verge of trying to be on both sides. Maryland and the state of Kentucky were also involved. So it encompassed most of the South.
In 1780, the capital moved from Williamsburg to Richmond. But you see, they didn't have a Capitol building. So they met at a place known then as the Cunningham Warehouse, located on the corner of 14th and Cary. You remember Thomas Jefferson? Well, in 1785, he started designing what is now known as the Capitol building.
I get it.
So after 8 long years, the General Assembly finally held their first meeting in October of 1788 right here at the Capitol building. Cool. Between 1904 and 1906, the original Capitol was enlarged. The East Wing became the Hall of the House of Delegates, and the West Wing became the Chamber of the Senate.
Why was Richmond the best place for a capital?
Well, they had been in a very strange position of not being able to defend themselves very well. The British had attacked them twice through two major wars, the Revolution and the War of 1812, and they decided it'd probably be better to move a little further up the peninsula to better protect the city. Also, Richmond sits on the fall line of the James where the rapids start. So the largest ocean-going vessels of the period to come all the way up to the capital of the city of Richmond, unload their cargo, put them on smaller boats, and go further up the James and trade.
So they couldn't make it through the fall line
They
to
could
attack.
not. They're exactly right. The important thing to remember is why was the Civil War fought? And everybody will tell you there's a different cause for the war. Some people will tell you that it's slavery. Some people will tell you that it's states' rights. Some people will tell you it had to do with economy. But probably the thing to remember about the American Civil War is that it was the test of the American Revolution. The American Revolution was about separating from Great Britain.
That's right.
And starting a government that was more democratic.
Yep.
And that you can keep a union together. It was a very important time in our history and probably defines us as Americans today.
I'm proud to be an American. At Richmond Rath Company with my buddy Mark. How you doing, Mark?
Doing well, Jennifer.
Good. You know, we've been talking about the history of Richmond on our show, and I want to know how this rafting business will, you know, get us healthy and keep us fit, or why do people like to do this?
I think kids love it because you get outdoors. You get to run around, but you're inside a raft, you're on the river, there's places to swim, you paddle, you have rapids to go through, so it's a lot of physical activity, a lot of running around, plus being outside. For most of our trips, you need to be at least 50 pounds or heavier, and then everyone's given a paddle, so everyone paddles to make it through the rapids and to make it down the river, but there is a raft guide in each raft to help you out.
Okay, now, we have been talking about the history of Richmond. What's the connection between Richmond Raft Company and the history of Richmond?
Because rafting's the best thing to do when you're in the city of Richmond.
Why?
Why? I think because you're getting outdoors on the James River.
And what does the James River have to do with the history of Richmond?
Well, from the very beginning, with the colonial settlers, they found it a great place for the falling water to generate the machinery and just do all the industry they had to do. The Indians that lived here used the same water to catch their fish and do everything else.
Yep.
And then as time has gone by, it's become recreational canoeing, the kayaking. There's even a place to rock climb on the James River, the swimming, snorkeling, rafting, fishing.
There's tons of things to do.
Yeah.
Now, when you're actually on your raft and you're going down the James River, what are some of the things that you're going to see?
What most everyone will see, you'll be in the James River Park system, so with all the trees, the tall blue herons that look like cranes, tall blue herons, ospreys fly around and feed on the fish.
Tons of wildlife?
Canada geese come back and forth on their migration, lots of wildlife. Also, part of what makes the James River unique is you are in the city. You're going to see the skyline of Richmond. You'll see the muskrats feed on little freshwater clams right up on the rocks, and the rocks are just littered with all these little clams you can pick up and take as souvenirs. And, you know, the most popular and most famous historical site would be Tredegar Ironworks. It has a long history starting back for the Civil War days of munitions, cannonballs, crafting iron for like the Merrimack, famous battle, Monitor Merrimack.
There's some famous islands that you see also. I know Brown's Island. What's the other one that's kind of famous?
Belle Isle.
Belle Isle. What about Belle?
Belle Isle is famous for having a prisoner of war camp during the Civil War of Union soldiers. Has a quarry pit out there. At one time it was an iron and nail works out on the island. Right now it's part of the James River Park system, so it's great for walking around and hiking and for viewing the rapids, some of the larger rapids right at Belle Isle.
Man, there's tons to do, tons to see. Can you show me some of the things that we were talking about before that if I were to go rafting today, what things I would need to go rafting?
Yeah, we can do that right now.
Great. All right, well, I'm here with my PFD on. What is a PFD?
PFD is your personal flotation device.
Okay.
It just helps float your body because it's up to you when you fall in the river to swim and get yourself out of danger if necessary.
Yeah, I used to call it a life jacket. They're trying to get away from that.
That's right. Yeah, because it's up to you to take care of yourself when you do fall into the river.
All right, well, I'm not going to fall in the river. Okay, so I've got on my PFD, my personal flotation device. I'm sitting on this raft. Okay, so we got 2 things. What else do we need to go rafting?
Well, the next thing, you would have your crew. This raft would be 6 kids in here.
6?
Put 6 right inside this raft.
Wow.
In the back there would be a raft guide.
Okay.
Everyone would get a paddle.
Uh-huh.
And we would sit out on the side of the raft, something like this.
Uh-huh.
And everyone would be paddling along. And then you can use your feet to brace.
So you don't sit here?
No, you actually sit out on the sides of the raft because you want to be able to get to the water to paddle.
Yeah.
And it helps you stay in.
This is going to strengthen our shoulder muscles and our arms. Can you do that?
Of course it will.
Good, good. All right, so tell me what I need to get started with this whole rafting business.
First of all, anytime you want to go out in the river, I do recommend a professional outfitter because they're the ones who have the equipment, they know the river, they know everything about where you want to go, and it's a great, if it's your first time, I totally recommend an outfitter in the local area. But here in Richmond, here at Richmond Raft Company, it's just a matter of giving our 800 phone number a call, make a reservation, and you get your equipment and your paddle, and then we head upriver, raft to rapids, and come right back here.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it's great.
So what are you sitting there for? Get moving.
Speaking of the James River, does it ever freeze? Does the ocean ever freeze? This is what you're gonna need. 2 plastic cups, a tablespoon of salt, a black marking pen, and some water. Okay, this is what you do. You fill each cup halfway with water. And then you take a tablespoon of salt and you pour it in 1 cup. And then you take the marking pen and mark that cup with the S so that you know that's the one with salt. Don't forget to dissolve the salt by stirring it with your measuring spoon. It works fine. Now we're going to go put the cups in the freezer. Check the cups every hour for 4 hours, then again after 24 hours. Here are the results. The unsalted water is frozen. Here are the results. The unsalted water froze within the first 4 hours, but the salt water never froze. Why does this happen? Well, the salt causes the water to freeze at a lower temperature. Water generally freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. At this temperature, all the little water molecules usually cling together to form ice, but because of the salt, the little water molecules can't cling together, and that's why it doesn't freeze.
Whoa, what a day. So many facts. I hope you learned something, because I certainly did. Richmond is loaded with history, and we haven't even scratched the surface. But that's for you to do. All you need to do is get in your car with your mom or dad. That's my mom.
Let's go, Jennifer.
I gotta go. Listen, I'll see you next week on Brain Stew. Not telling you where I'm going. If you want to find out, be there. Bye.
The unsalted water.
Here's a few hints. Number 1, I used a map